not our presentation.
Hi everybody, it's Raul Smith. Welcome to another edition of the Closing Tag podcast. That was rhymed, by the way. The name of this episode is Turned Down for WAP. Yes, that's exactly how it sounds. We talk about Grammy Gate and Pepa Le Pew Gate and Lola Bunny Gate. By the way, just pause the introduction for a quick second. Can I just express my absolute disdain for people's just fascination with attaching the word gate to any kind of controversy these days? Like, Watergate was 40 years ago. Let's get over it already, okay? Yeah. That's also an inside joke, in case you can't tell. And that's pause. Turned Down for WAP. We talk about the controversy surrounding the Grammys and Pepa Le Pew and Lola Bunny, and I delve into music at the workplace and React Bootstrap. But anyway, this podcast and every podcast is unofficially sponsored by two sponsors, actually. Galactic Blue, your professional web development, graphic design, and logo design resource. Visit galacticblue.net for all of the information that you'll need for how your business can benefit from our services. And by the Telltale Heart movie, the short indie film that is just sweeping every film festival on planet Earth right now. So visit telltalemovie.com for more information on that. We are available on Apple Podcast, Spotify, Stitcher, Amazon Music, TuneIn, and late breaking news. There's a very good chance that you're hearing this podcast for the very first time on Pandora. That's right, we are now officially on Pandora. This has been a long time coming. I am very happy and proud and excited to be starting this podcast journey on Pandora, and I hope that you'll be along for the ride. So let's go ahead and get started. The name of the episode.
6.
You're 7.
I'm 7.
Yeah. I was about to say, you just had a birthday recently.
I'm 7.
Podcasters can't see it, but Ryan is missing her 2 front teeth.
Yeah, because the other one need to come out because the dot teeth coming in the baby's tooth still, and the other one just came out because I accidentally hit my head on the table.
Oh, I didn't know that part. Anyway, so name of the episode, Turned Down for WAP, and I hope that you will enjoy the podcast as usual. Welcome skunk enthusiasts and rabbit aficionados. Welcome sex shamers and sex addicts alike. Welcome to another edition of the Closing Tag. Hi, I am Raul Smith. I am the president, CEO, co-founder, and lead developer for Galactic Blue. And if you're watching this on YouTube, I'm also the proud owner, as you can clearly see, of a new webcam. Yay! The first official upgrade on the podcast. Round of applause. Welcome to the podcast, everybody. I hope that you found it very well. We are on most of the major podcast platforms, including Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn, and more. And of course, we are here on YouTube as well. If you wish to see the video of this podcast, the link is in the description of the pod. As always, this podcast and every episode of this podcast is unofficially sponsored by Galactic Blue, your professional web development, graphic design, and logo design resource. Visit galacticblue.net for more information on how your business can benefit from our services. And if you're around for the last episode, well, you'll know we now have a new unofficial sponsor to add to the lineup, and it is the Telltale Heart. From the brilliant and insane mind of McLean Lundquist, and based on an amazing novel by Edgar Allan Poe, the Telltale Heart takes a deep dive into the sea of madness. Already racking up many awards in the short and indie film circuits. Visit telltalemovie.com for more information on where you can find this film. So today's episode is going to be a little bit all over the map. We've got controversy surrounding musicians, and I use that term loosely, and cartoon characters, and yes, including the one that you think I'm going to talk about. The one that's on everyone's mind these days. I've got some unfinished business from the last episode that I just didn't have time to do last time. And some pretty insane news to share with everybody. Also, there's a Discord discussion that I wish to share with everyone. So, we'll start there. So, full disclosure, about a year ago, I was laid off from my last web development job due to issues not related to COVID-19. This was pre-pandemic. Since then, I've been applying myself, training, of course, doing the podcast, and such to get myself back in the game, so to speak. In that time, I knew that I couldn't do all of this without some kind of income coming in. So, I set pride and ego aside to work at Amazon as a fulfillment associate. About a month ago, I was offered a contract position with an online company called Carousels, hairstyling products, which is perfectly ironic because I have no hair to speak of. It wasn't until I started working at home from Carousels that I realized just how much I missed having music on in the background while I'm working. I mean, yes, it has its benefits. Being able to listen to what I want without getting yelled at by a supervisor, but it also has its drawbacks. As I've mentioned before on the podcast, I have 2 kids. One is 14. He's old enough to understand and just kind of ignore all of those references in music and movies. The 7-year-old, on the other hand, still has that sense of innocence about her. So I have to really watch what I listen to and watch around her. She's in the background right now. She also likes to watch YouTube Kids, and as such will subject my office. This is my office. Yeah. To her own special blend of background noise. The other night I was introduced to a cat meme. Without risking getting a copyright strike on YouTube, all I will say is that it's a cat and it goes meow meow meow, meow meow meow, meow meow meow. So that brings me to the Discord discussion for this particular podcast episode, and that is, if you got to listen to any kind of music, not podcasts, not shows on YouTube, but just strictly music, and you didn't have to worry about offending anyone around you in the office or at home, what would it be? Before I get to my friends' comments on Facebook, I will give you a very brief glimpse of just the insanity and madness that is my music style and sense. And I will read to you a clip of songs that I legitimately listened to the other day. This is an actual playlist that I listened to the other day while doing remote work for my new contractor job. Ready? Okay. Number 1, Cult of Personality by Living Colour. Always a classic in my opinion, and is one of the perfect get up and go songs. Number 2, We Didn't Start the Fire by Billy Joel, another classic, and if you listen to this podcast regularly, you can see why I like it. Number 3, Hearts of Men by Tupac. Okay. Number 4, Radetzky March Op. 228. Classical song that I like to listen to on occasion. Number 5, Shepherd of Fire by Avenged Sevenfold. Again, going back to the get up and go aspect. Number 6, this is all random, by the way. I did not set this playlist up in advance. This was all randomized by YouTube Music. Number 6, Savior by Rise Against. Probably their most famous song, and for good reason. Number 7, The Harbor Is Yours by Aesop Rock. Again, kind of veering off the beaten path, but okay. Number 8, Hey Jude by the Beatles. One of these is not like the other. Number 9, Adoro by Bronco. As Tiger likes to call it, Mexican polka. Now it's just getting out of hand. 10, Let's Go Crazy by Prince. A different kind of get up and go, but I like it. Number 11, Don't Stop Me Now by Queen. Classic, highly underrated Queen song, by the way. 12, Hold Me Now by the Thompson Twins. Little known fact, one of my favorite go-to karaoke songs. 13, Pearl Jam, Even Flow. Love the 90s grunge metal added to the mix. 14, Master of Puppets by Metallica. And finally, 15, Who Got the Camera by Ice Cube. I got nothing. So to recap, we have punk rock, 80s pop, 90s gangsta rap, classical, alternative metal, alternative rock, underground hip-hop, classic 60s music, Mexican music, back to 80s pop, 90s grunge metal, classic heavy metal, and back to 90s gangster rap. That's just a small sample size of my playlist. So now, let's hear what some of my friends on Facebook had to say when I asked them this question the other day. Tiger, love you babe, says 80s pop all the way. You may get offended, but you know you want to sing along. I'll say this, 80s music may just be the greatest era for music in modern history. I'll put the hits of the 80s up against hits of any other era. 60s, 70s, today doesn't even come close. It's also the most influential. We can go into an entire discussion on this podcast on what era had the best music, but I'll just sum it up. It's the 80s. Yeah. Steve, the communist, says also 80s pop. I'll agree with that. Mike, the fellow jazz fan, says rap, rap, and more rap. Can't go wrong there. Devin, another jazz fan, says put your headphones on and listen to whatever you want. Well, yeah, there is that. I will say I've worked jobs where that was an option. I've worked jobs where they didn't allow headphones in the building. I've worked jobs where you pretty much listen to whatever the boss is listening to. So I can definitely see this as being a thing. For sure. Tillin says Eminem. Gotcha. Finally, Scott, good old Scott, says, who gives a bleep, it's all about me. I think that's a good comment to leave the discussion on. So what say you? I've left the link to the Discord channel in the description, and you are always welcome to either join in on the conversation, or you are also welcome to submit your own discussion topics for future podcast episodes. So hop in the Discord, let's talk, and yeah. Now, I have some music that you can add to your work playlist. Horror movie music. You have to admit, horror movies have some of the best ambiance music of any movie genre out there. The best music can sometimes set the perfect stage for a horror movie. And the horror movie I'm about to talk about is no different. Based on the fabled short story from Edgar Allan Poe and from the creative and brilliant mind of MacLean Lundquist, comes the most frightening deep dive into the sea of madness. Telltale Heart has already won multiple awards, including Best Sound Editing and Best Actor in Sonny Grimsley at the Indie Shorts Film Festival, as well as the coveted Diamond Award for Best Short Film at the Minefield Film Festival in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Revisit Edgar Allan Poe's short story, as this film brings more than just a classic horror story to a new audience, but also discovers a creative way to explore the groundbreaking psychological thriller. I mean, this is fascinating stuff. The narrative is enhanced through an unprecedented use of sounds and light, and the characters blend a modern sensibility with anachronistic charm, as seen through an unsettling array of time and space, while a shifting setting disorients the unwitting audience. What is seen and what is heard leads the perplexed audience to ask, what is insanity and what truly constitutes reality? TelltaleMovie.com for more information on this brilliantly insane thriller. The closing tag is honored to have them as an unofficial sponsor of the podcast. So before I start this next take, going back to what I briefly mentioned in passing in the last episode, New York, you need to get rid of Andrew Cuomo. There, I said it. Let's revisit a major topic from the last podcast, shall we? Since people don't seem to kind of grasp this concept. It's the idea of cancel culture. Now, recently, in wake of realizing that sexualizing cartoon characters and promoting characters that seem aggressive, we'll go with aggressive, towards their female counterparts might not be such a good idea in today's day and age. Warner Brothers recently made some changes to their fabled Looney Tunes lineup. First, they revised the character of Lola Bunny. If you remember, in the 1996 cult classic Space Jam, Lola was the girl bunny that joined the team and won the heart of team co-captain Bugs Bunny. Lola's appearance has recently undergone a certain transformation, if you will. Because this is a PG podcast, I'll just say that she's undergone a reduction in size, if you catch my drift. This recent change sent Twitter into a major upheaval. Oh, how could they do this? This isn't the Lola Bunny I know. And that's just the comments I can read on the air. Then, in another move that sent Looney Tunes Nation into a pitchfork panic, as I like to call it, Warner Brothers decided to pull Pepe Le Pew from the Space Jam sequel entirely, citing, quote, a lack of the character's ability to relate to the current climate post-Me Too, end quote. Now, if you recall, Pepe Le Pew's entire shtick is based around a simple premise. He sees a girl cat who has recently had white paint conveniently painted on her back in a pattern that has her resembling a girl skunk. He falls head over heels over her and advances on her. She rejects his advances, and the chase begins. She eventually wears out, and he catches up to her. This continues over the course of the next 5 or so minutes until the end of the cartoon. The point is, if there was ever a case for Me Too, the girl cat from Pepe Le Pew would have the most legitimate case there is, because we all witnessed it firsthand. Of course, conservatives on Twitter threw around the term cancel culture because Pepe Le Pew was being canceled. Listen, I grew up on this stuff. I grew up on cartoons that were funny and entertaining, albeit extremely flawed. Looney Tunes specifically was full of just questionable characters that just made things that much more interesting. I mean, you had a potentially racist Western guy, Yosemite Sam. You had Bugs Bunny, who I argue was a bully to both Elmer Fudd and Daffy Duck. You had Elmer Fudd, who was, he basically would have been flayed alive by PETA back in the day, if PETA was even a thing. Pepe Le Pew just happened to be the most blatantly obvious of the bunch. And yes, it's a bit annoying that Warner Brothers and HBO Max has now decided to put a disclaimer up on these cartoons warning people that the times back then, when these cartoons were made, were different from today's age. But it's necessary. Trusting people to be better than a bunch of cartoon characters from the 60s is how we got Me Too in the first place. It's how we got people that just can't take no for an answer in the first place. People failed to teach their children no means no, Sometimes people in charge of these properties have to step in and police them for us. Similar to the Dr. Seuss fiasco, where the publisher has decided to stop publishing certain Dr. Seuss books because of the questionable characters in those books that were depicted in a negative, some may argue racist light. You'd think, listening to conservatives on social media, that people were coming to take their Pepe Le Pew DVDs and their Dr. Seuss books, physically removing them from their home. As a disclosure, I happen to have one of the books in question. I happen to have one of the books that stopped publishing. And to think I saw it on Mulberry Street. I know the part they were describing. I knew when I first saw it that it would be a problem. I still read that book to this day to my daughter when I get her ready for bed. President Biden has not yet come by to round it up for the local book burning, nor has anybody in Gestapo getup come to take me away for illegally owning the book. Nobody is coming to take your books away from you. Nobody is saying you cannot own a copy of these books or watch Pepe Le Pew cartoons. They're just reminding people that people back in those days were wrong to glorify racism and men forcing themselves on women, and deservedly so. It's not cancel culture, it's accountability culture. I can understand that after getting away with treating women like less than men and people of different cultures like human trash for generations, how forcing society to say that's messed up and taking actions to ensure that the next generation knows how messed up that was and apologizing for it might come across as cancel culture, but it's called accountability. For a group of people that love to preach to others how they should be held accountable for their actions, conservatives have this amazing talent for refusing to hold themselves accountable for theirs. Not to mention, the same people that cried about Lola Bunny's appearance changes will cry about a song called WAP by Cardi B being performed at the Grammys as a sign of the devil coming to their homes. That kind of display is unfit for national television. And listen, I am not a Cardi B fan. I find a lot of her music to be leaving a lot to be desired. I find it lazy, uninspired, and only hitting the lowest common denominator. By the way, I feel the same about this Megan Thee Stallion as well as Nicki Minaj. Maybe it's because I'm one of those old fogies that grew up to some music that would, in my opinion, embarrass the hell out of these women. Music like En Vogue, TLC, SWV, Queen Latifah back before she dedicated herself solely to acting, Missy Elliott. These were women that knew how to invoke emotion when they performed and who knew how to be provocative without being too blatantly obvious about it. But question to all the people that were being offended by Cardi B's performance at the Grammys. Where the hell were you back in the 70s when we had songs like Afternoon Delight talking about getting a quick pick-me-up from the wife during lunch break? Where were you when there was this song called My Sharona? By the way, if I'm the knack, I'm nervous as hell that I'm next to be canceled or be held accountable. I mean, have you heard the lyrics to that song lately? Or where were you back when a member of TLC back in the early 90s would perform on stage with an eye patch made out of a condom? Or when Salt and Pepa wanted to talk about sex, baby? I mean, people that get so easily offended by Cardi B obviously have never heard Salt and Pepa's work. Ever. The point is, you can't go around crying about books and cartoon characters being held accountable for their actions and depicting women as objects and minorities as inferior to others, then turn around and complain about the appearance of a cartoon character, making it less likely that she too will be objectified, then turn right back around and complain about women objectifying themselves in song. That's not how this works. Also, I'll leave you with one final thought. I would think that these people would find better uses of all this free time that they clearly have on their hands if they're complaining about children's books and cartoon characters. I know it's been a rough 12 months for a lot of people, for everybody really. This pandemic has clearly and certainly gotten the better of everybody. I know I've been affected. May I suggest finding a hobby? Maybe take up painting, maybe take up stitching, or hell, learn a new skill on Pluralsight. Free classes all through the end of April. That plug is free, by the way. Next one will cost you. So if the previous episodes are any indication, it's that I've taken quite an interest to React as a way to create some amazing applications. React, if you don't know, is a JavaScript framework that allows re-rendering of the DOM to create some beautiful dynamic web content. But even it needs a little help from a few friends. Some people like to use style components, some like to use semantic UI, but today I'm going to show you how I've been using a React library called React Bootstrap to help me along the way. As the name suggests, it uses a React version of the popular framework Bootstrap to style components. After I'm done with the documentation, should I have any time left over after that, we'll go ahead and dive into a few projects that I've been working on. Most of them also have React Bootstrap. So first and foremost, we are going to be looking at the React Bootstrap documentation. Here it is at reactbootstrap.github.io. As you can see, right here it says React Bootstrap replaces the Bootstrap JavaScript. Each component has been built from scratch as a true React component without unneeded dependencies like jQuery. That's one of the things that I really love about React Bootstrap is that you don't need to install jQuery. You don't need to involve it or any other dependencies. All you need is your React components, your class names in those components, as well as the React Bootstrap installed through npm. So to get started, we're going to go ahead and take a look at the components. The first one that I really like, and you'll see it right as you enter the components page, is called the alerts. These are just absolutely amazing. I like to use them quite a bit for like if I need any kind of just verification of, like if there's an email form that I'm sending, or if there's any kind of just anything really. I like to have the little alert box on the bottom basically say, okay, this got sent, or hey, there's a problem. So let's take a look at it real quick. So the first thing we need to look at is the type of the alerts, the variants. There's obviously primary, secondary, success, danger, warning, info. There's a few other ones. You can see all of them right here, light, dark. Basically, it's really simple. All you gotta do is just simply go to the code and say, hey, I want to put variant equals primary, variant equals secondary, success, danger, so on and so forth. Let's move on to the accordion. The accordion's pretty cool. It's a neat little feature I've used in the past in some projects. Basically, it just goes like this. Watch and observe. Click on the little accordion activator, boom. And then it's just simply a matter of including the accordion into the code. We'll skip badge and breadcrumb and go to a pretty critical version, or pretty critical component of React Bootstrap, and it's called buttons. So button variants act very similarly to the alert variants. You just include the word variant equals, and then whatever your primary, your secondary, success, warning, danger, info, light, dark, etc. And the primary and the secondary are all based on what color scheme you're using for your particular Bootstrap theme, which I'll get to that in just a minute. It's a really cool feature. You can also do outline buttons, which you can basically have the button as a white button but have it outlined. You can do button tags, which I really don't see the point in those. You can make them bigger or smaller. Just include variant and then size equals LG if you want to make it bigger, or size equals SM if you want to make it smaller. You can have block level buttons, active state, disable. You can disable your buttons. Like if you want to basically disable a submit button on a form unless an email address has been inputted, you can do that. Have the disabled feature as kind of like a ternary condition. Cards I've used in the past, but I'll skip that for today due to time constraints. Carousels. This is pretty cool. You can now have carousels in your React Bootstrap component. Basically, it's a slideshow. I've used carousels in a number of projects on my end. Basically, just have your items, your carousel items, and it's just all ready to go in Bootstrap, React Bootstrap rather. You can have them controlled. If you don't like the sliding effect and rather like the fade effect, you can just add the word fade to the carousel component. And I'm going to show you the code for that. First, let's take a look at the slides. It's very cool. I like it. It's very awesome. Now for the carousel itself, like I said in the code, in the carousel component you have the word fade. You have each individual carousel item. So whatever you want inside the carousel, you can have an image, you can have the caption, carousel.caption, and you can have that pretty much whatever you want. You can even have a link in it if you want. And yeah, it's pretty amazing stuff. I like it. I've used it in the past. It's pretty awesome. So move on now to forms. This is a pretty big one for React Bootstrap and pretty big for React components in general. As you can see, you can have an authentication form, so your email address and your password. So also here you can have your email address, you can have your example select, your drop down selects, you can have multiple selects, you can have a text area. I'm just going to type in, hi, I'm a text area. And the code is right over here. Basically take a good look at it. Form, form.group, form.label, form.control, all that stuff. It's just like Bootstrap, only it's in React. You can also have an input for file upload. You can have your labels and your fields any size you want, large, normal, small. You just type in size equals SM or size equals LG. You can also do a select for the same thing, size equals LG if you want it bigger, size equals SM if you want it smaller. Or you can have the input as read-only. If you want just a read-only input field, you can just add the word read-only. Why does this thing keep popping up? That is so bizarre. Alright, this is getting annoying. I'm going to press escape and see what happens. Nope, still happens. Alright, fine, whatever. Anyway, that's how that works. You also have your email range inputs, your checkboxes, your radios. You can have inline checkboxes and radios. You can have them without labels. Why you'd want them without labels, I have no idea. You can even do form check rendering if you ever wanted to like verify, hey, this is a valid email address. You can do that. That's pretty cool too. We'll skip images, Jumbotron for right now. Let's get to the Navs. This is a pretty big one. But first, let's go to Modal. I think Modal's going to be a good one too. So modals, if you've ever been on a website and suddenly something pops up as you're scrolling along or as you're doing the thing, that's called a modal. That's basically I don't know why that's not going. Oh, I know why. It's a static modal dialog. Okay. Below is a static modal dialog to demonstrate the look and feel of a modal. There it is right there. Okay. Let's go to an actually working example here for those of you that are watching this on YouTube. Here we go, live demo. Let's launch the demo modal. Boom, it's a modal. Yay! Basically, right here is the code. You have your modal component show. You can even have like a button that triggers an event handler. So if you want to have a button that clicks the modal or clicks, when you click on it, it shows a modal, you can do that. If you want to add an event handler in the modal itself, you can do that. You can have on-click event handlers on buttons inside the modal footer. Basically, the possibilities of this kind of application are endless. It's just an absolutely amazing feature. I absolutely love it. You can do a static backdrop if you want to just have just normal backdrop. You can have it without animation, which again, I don't see why you'd want that, but I mean, that's just me. I like styling things up a little bit. You can have your modal vertically centered. Now, that's the thing that I really like, is to have something that's vertically centered. Then again, that's just me. I'm very symmetrical that way. My dog agrees with me. You can use a grid inside of your modal, so you can have your container, your rows, your columns, all this stuff inside the modal. It's pretty cool. You can also have optional sizes, so if you want a smaller modal, you can have a teeny tiny modal. Or if you want a massive modal, you can do that. Or there's another option, and it's one that I've used in the past, and it's a responsive modal. Let me click out of this thing right here, and we go down to the sizing modals using a custom CSS. So the custom CSS, you could basically have modal hyphen whatever width. So it automatically resizes the modal, and I'll demonstrate here in a minute. Basically add the dialog, class name, and there it is right there. It's 90% width, and it'll automatically resize according to the window size. And I'll demonstrate that right now. So we'll go ahead and inspect, and there it is right there. Now I'm going to resize it right here. Boom. Awesome. Love it. And it automatically resizes to 90% regardless of where you're at. Let's go ahead and head on to one of the most important parts of the React Bootstrap library, and that is the navigation. This is something that you're going to definitely want for your React applications. So your base navigation and your all these alignments and whatnot, these are all well and good, but the thing that I really want to show you is the Nav Bar. So your Nav Bar, you're going to be using this quite a bit if you're using React Bootstrap at all in your future projects. You're going to have your Nav Bar brand, you're going to have your search fields inside your navigation, and here's the thing that I really love right here, and it's something I've been especially using with OAuth with Google, is you can have it signed in. Here's the navigation with color schemes, so your dark, your primary colors, and your light. Perfect. And again, it's very similar to the alerts and the buttons. You just type in variant. Well, actually, it's variant dark or variant light. The BG is what you're going to be putting in for the color itself. And you got your container, you got your placement. You can have it fixed to the top, fixed to the bottom, or even a sticky top if you want. Here's the thing that I really love. This is called the responsive behaviors. So say for instance you've got a navigation that you absolutely love on desktop, but it is just crammed to the gills on mobile or tablet. The one thing you want to do is you want to use what's called a responsive behavior inside of your nav bar. So nav bar collapse, you basically wrap your entire navigation except for a couple of components inside of this nav bar collapse component. Also, don't forget your closing tag right here. And basically wrap all of that inside a nav bar collapse. And then in order to activate the nav bar collapse, you're going to want a nav bar toggle with ARIA controls, and you want to make sure your ARIA controls matches exactly the ID inside of your nav bar collapse, otherwise it's not going to work. And then go ahead and basically you also want to make sure that you want a collapse on select feature on the nav bar component exactly. And you want to expand equals either LG or MD, whichever that you prefer, depending on the size of your nav bar. We're going to go ahead and demonstrate what exactly the nav bar collapse is going to do. So we're going to go ahead and inspect element, and voila, the entire component is now wrapped in what I like to call a hamburger menu. So click on the hamburger, and there's your navigation bar right there. So that's pretty much all the components that I wanted to show you for today, and pretty much all the time that I have to show you all the components for today. I mean, there's so many more. You can see on your screen right here, there's like progress and spinners and tables and tooltips. Oh my goodness, there's just so many things. But let's get to the nitty-gritty, the thing that you're really going to need to take away from all this, and that is exactly how to import it into your React application. So obviously in your command line, you're going to want to npm install React Bootstrap and Bootstrap. That's going to install all of your dependencies that you're going to need. And then to import components, basically just type in import and then inside of your curly brackets the components that you need from React Bootstrap. So like your containers, your rows, your divs, your buttons, your just anything in general, it goes right in there. You're going to want to bring in something inside of your root directory or your root files. So your CSS, you're going to want to import into your app or index.js file this little line right here, import bootstrap dist css bootstrap.min.css. That's going to be the thing that's going to give you the styling of the entire application right there. Likewise, if you want to just have it installed directly into your HTML file that the React application is going to be imported into, just type in this little link thing right here. I like to just copy paste it because that's a lot to type. You can even import it into your Sass if you're using Sass in your React application. So your import bootstrap Sass bootstrap, and then inside of your index or app.js file, you just import your Sass file. So import app.scss. Then going down even further, you can customize your Bootstrap. This is the thing that I really love to show, is you can import your color themes, or your theme colors rather. So if you want to change the primary to say purple and the back and the secondary to red, you can do theme colors, primary equals purple or secondary equals burgundy or whatever. And then you can import that into your Sass file, or you can even import your custom Sass file into the React component. The main takeaway is that this is fully customizable and you are going to absolutely love what you can do with this. So unfortunately, that's all the time I have for this episode. I want to thank each and every person that is watching this stream, that is watching the archive videos on YouTube, that's downloading the pod, or even checking us out on our new Facebook page. Yes, we have a new Facebook page, facebook.com/theclosing tag. Links are all in the description. Thank you so much. This podcast is unofficially sponsored by Galactic Blue, your professional web development, graphic design, and logo design resource. Visit galacticblue.net for more information on how your business can benefit from our services, as well as the Telltale Heart, the indie short horror film that's sweeping all the film festivals. Visit telltalemovie.com for more information on where you may be able to find it in your area. If you would like to help sponsor the podcast officially or not so much, we don't really have a Patreon, but I'm always open to suggestions. Hit me up at raul@galacticblue.net if you have a suggestion or if you want to help support the podcast in any way, shape, or form. We are on Apple Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, let's try that again, Spotify, Stitcher, Amazon Music, and many other podcast providers. Our video of each and every podcast can be found on our dedicated YouTube channel, which is the link again can be found in the description, as well as our new Facebook page, facebook.com/theclosingtag. Again, links in the description. Give us a follow if you'd be so kind. Thank you guys again for listening and watching, and as always, remember to include your closing tags.
On that, our presentation.